man begins to wake up, he doesn't slam any doors. He simply stops leaning forward. The room keeps moving, the talk keeps circling, but something in him no longer reaches to join it. It isn't dislike. It isn't fatigue with people. It's the quiet recognition that the usual way of connecting has always been a trade. My image for your approval, my attention for your reassurance. Once he sees that, the bargain loses its price. He notices the performance inside ordinary scenes, the smile calibrated to be safe, the opinion worn like a badge, the quick nods that say, "We're fine, don't go any deeper." And without making a speech about it, he steps back half a pace, not out of pride, not out of cynicism, just out of honesty. Waves still happen, small talk still appears, but what used to feel like a rope between him and others now feels like thread. The connection that once seemed solid is revealed as choreography practice steps everyone learned by watching everyone else. He didn't cut ties, he didn't burn bridges, he simply stopped pretending. And when pretending ends, distance writes itself. This is the beginning of solitude, not loneliness, but the space between the costume he wore and the presence that wears nothing. He sees what actually holds groups together. It isn't truth. It isn't depth. It's habit, comfort, and the mutual polishing of masks. People bond by repeating the same weather of talk, complaints about work, defenses of beliefs they never inspected, stories told for the feeling they give rather than the clarity they bring. He used to call that connection. Now it sounds like busy air. He notices how often words are used to spare silence, how much energy goes into keeping a face intact, seeking agreement, offering reassurance, trading little signals of, "You're safe with me if I'm safe with you." And once he stops needing those signals himself, he can't unsee how dependent the room is on them. Relationships survive not by honesty, but by gently keeping the story intact. When he stops feeding the story, its edges loosen. He still cares. He still listens. He simply refuses to agree that pretending is kindness. From the outside, he looks the same. He shows up. He's polite. He hasn't vanished. But something fundamental has rotated. People feel it even if they can't name it. A steadiness that no longer asks to be approved. Some admire it. Others are unsettled. He becomes harder to place when he stops performing for placement. He doesn't flatter, he doesn't compete, he doesn't entertain. Without those familiar cues, the room mislabels him. Distant, quiet, changed. What they mean is, he no longer fits the role they gave him. He once reflected their values back to them. Now he reflects something prior to values, something still, something that does not borrow its worth from being liked. He used to think connection required constant involvement. Show up, add to the conversation, keep the surface smooth. But as his priorities turned inward, obligation lost its charm. He didn't care less. He simply stopped asking others to confirm what he already knows within. He still values connection, just not the kind that demands performance, not the kind that needs him to shrink to fit a frame, not the kind that asks for agreement as the price of belonging. To anyone used to warmth bought with small lies, his presence feels cool. In truth, he has simply retired from the job of managing appearances. Much of what people call connection is a pact. I'll protect your favourite illusions if you protect mine. Once he steps out of that pact, he disrupts it just by being there. He doesn't argue. He doesn't convert. He doesn't make a scene. He just stops sending the usual signals: approval, flattery, reassurance. And the room feels emptier without its mirror. Old friendships fade, not from conflict but from clarity. He sees how often ties are woven from routine complaint, from rehearsed habits, from the shared maintenance of personal narratives. When he stops feeding those threads, the knot loosens on its own. This is not rejection, it's the reallocation of energy. True friendship becomes quieter, simpler, rarer, not built from matching illusions, but from mutual recognition. Two people who don't need each other, choosing to walk side by side without demand. Most social life relies on unspoken rules. Validate mine and I'll validate yours. We won't look too closely at the ground we stand on. We'll soften the edges so no one's comfort is disturbed. He played those rules because everyone did. But once he steps outside them, the dynamic breaks on contact. He will not offer comfort that hides the truth. He will not pretend at agreement to be allowed inside. This isn't rebellion, it's clarity. And clarity gently reveals how much of everyday life is a choreography designed to postpone seeing. People notice even if they don't understand. Something familiar goes missing, the constant exchange of comfort, validation, distraction. Without his contribution, the old circuit weakens. Conversations grow awkward, invitations thin. What once felt warm now feels tense, not because he did harm, but because he stopped supplying what the script required. As understanding deepens, he needs less. Less recognition, less permission, less company to justify his mood to himself. And as need dissolves, so do the ties that demanded it. Paradox, the clearer he becomes, the quieter life becomes. Not because he is closed, but because so much of what filled his calendar was a search for confirmation he no longer requires. Without that search, most activity turns optional. He stops trying to be understood. He stops arranging explanations as payment for acceptance. He no longer measures his worth by the size of his role in other people's stories. From far away, this looks like withdrawal. Inside, it's the opposite, a settling into something honest and substantial. He still welcomes connection when it appears naturally without performance. He hasn't grown cold, he has grown undependent, and in that undependence there is a depth that attachment never delivered. Once awake, he can't unsee. Looking inward, the noise remembers how to be quiet. Looking outward, the world keeps moving as if speed were proof of meaning. He sees certainty in eyes that haven't been tested, roles polished by years of repetition, beliefs defended not because they are true, but because they are familiar. He sees how motion can be used to outrun the stillness everyone secretly craves. He no longer envies what others call connection because he understands the cost: agreement, performance, conformity. He will not trade truth for the comfort of fitting in. Still, a gentle hope remains, not for crowds, not for constant company, but for the rare meeting with someone who is also awake enough not to need him smaller to feel safe. Such meetings cannot be manufactured. They appear when both people stop trying to be completed by each other. So he walks alone sometimes, not because he worships distance, but because in a world that loves to dream loudly, authenticity is more valuable than acceptance. In time, solitude stops feeling unusual. It becomes normal, not empty, just quiet. Distance stops being a problem to fix. It is simply the shape truth takes when pretense falls away. If you want a compass for this quiet, notice what appears. Call it object. Ask, who knows it? Rest there, where the seeing is. Not a role, not a name, not a story, but the open capacity in which everything comes and goes. From that openness, you can re-enter the room without bargaining for yourself. You can love people without needing their mirrors. You can speak without performing and be silent without apology. You don't need the world to wake up to feel whole. You don't need agreement to feel clear. You don't need validation to know who you are. Walk gently. Let the distance that used to scare you become the space where honesty breathes. And if someone meets you there, you'll know. Not because they say the right words, but because nothing in you feels the need to shrink.